And so we experience feelings through our brain also. And how we do this is by all of these ingredients that come in. The brain has to make sense of them. So we see what the brain tells us that, we see based on our prior experience, based on what we've learned. And how we experience emotions is a sensory system called interoception. And it's how we catch the feelings inside of our bodies. And it's when the brain sends signals that we feel inside of our body that we relate it to emotions.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to inspire and empower our listeners to live their best audacious lives ever. And I'm totally thrilled to have you here with us and appreciate each and every one of you that you're taking time to join us on this journey of personal growth and empowerment. Now, making tough decisions in life is like cooking a complex dish. It requires careful attention to detail, the right ingredients, and you got to add in a dash of courage. Just the way a chef creates a masterpiece in the kitchen, we too can craft our lives with intention and purpose, even when faced in the face of the most challenging of choices. And we all have to face them, and so that's something to certainly bear in mind. Now, in this episode, we have the pleasure of being joined by Korte, who's a sensory perception and emotion management strategist who helps people navigate their feelings through the lens of a chef. With her very unique approach, Kim sheds light on the connection between emotions and personal growth. Her expertise in understanding emotions through the lens of sensory input and recipes aligns perfectly with the theme of making tough decisions and managing emotions discussed in this episode. So stay tuned, get ready. It's a great conversation I'm certain you'll enjoy. Take it in. Hey, Kim, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's a pleasure for you to be here. I know we were trying to schedule and all kinds of things were happening, but we're here now and it's great to have you.
It is great to be here. I'm very excited.
Well, thank you. We spend much time on this podcast encouraging individuals to live their, the best audacious life, as we call it. And when you sort of think about that process and the process of life, it's a continuum, and all sorts of things can happen and come on our path, and maybe there's a boulder in our way, or detours, or some kind of obstacle, and we've got to adjust. And a big part of that, I think, the ability to sort of manage our emotions as we go through those processes is extremely important, and certainly a lane that you spend a lot of time in with respects to managing our individual emotions. So maybe as a starting point, we can get you to introduce yourself to our audience and help people understand a little bit about the work that you do.
My name is Kim Korte, and I am a sensory perception and emotion management strategist. And I help people to make sense of their feelings through the lens of a chef understanding flavors in a recipe.
I love it. I love it. Do tell. I know you've got a book out. We'll talk about. I love the title of the book, The Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet. But we'll get to that. But
yes.
No. Explain. It sounds delectable, delighting.
Delightful, right? Well, I wanted something for people because emotions can be scary.
Yes.
And they seem to be uncontrollable. And I know that it was for me in my life when you are overwhelmed by them. And it was running my life. I wasn't running my emotions. They were running me. And it was when I read a book called How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of the Brain, that the light went off. And this author, Lisa Feldman Barrett, she created this theory of constructed emotions. And it really makes sense. We have sensory input that we get from the outside world and the inside world. And they're the ingredients that we use to experience life. So we see with our brain, we don't see with our eyes. Our eyes are the vehicle to receive the light, the rays of the light waves. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that. Just like sound waves come in through our ears.
Yes.
We experience touch from our sense, our skin. And so we experience feelings through our brain also. And how we do this is by all of these ingredients that come in. The brain has to make sense of them. So we see what the brain tells us that, we see based on our prior experience, based on what we've learned. And how we experience emotions is a sensory system called interoception. And it's how we catch the feelings inside of our bodies. And it's when the brain sends signals that we feel inside of our body that we relate it to emotions. And what we do with those ingredients is based on the recipes we have in our head, our memories, our beliefs, everything that we have learned up till now they're all the same. It's just all a combination of ingredients that we had gotten at some point in time. We put a label on it, and that's used to replay when something similar comes along. So our brain is always predicting how we feel, what we see, what we hear. And when you understand that it's a prediction, I felt that it gave me more power, because then I can take control of those recipes. I can be more observant of the ingredients. And that's it in kind of a nutshell. A roasted peanut nutshell.
Right. It would I know roasted peanut can be quite tasty.
Yeah, I like roasted peanuts.
I wonder if you can, I want to take a step back here. When we talk about being aware of our emotions, what does that mean?
You are connecting to those signals, just like you're aware of what you see, because I'm looking at you, right? I'm aware of it. Our heart is beating all the time. Our stomach is doing its thing. Our body is in constant communication with the brain, back and forth, back and forth. We don't feel our heart until it's beating quite fast and the brain makes us aware of it. We don't feel our stomach grumbling until we're hungry and the sugar is low, so the brain makes us aware of it. Thirst, all these things. We don't notice our bladder until it's full and we need to use the restroom. So those are homeostatic emotions. Those are emotions that exist to keep us alive, right? To make sure that we are in balance, have enough water, have enough glucose. Well, the other kinds of emotions that we're familiar with, like sadness and love and anger and joy, these also use these parts of the body where we experience it. So we could be sickly in our stomach or not feeling quite right, and we can associate it to being sad, or we can associate it to being sick. But we are using these signals in our body to understand how we feel. And so when we are better able to connect to those feelings and define them, so just like a chef can take ingredients of a recipe and taste it. So a lot of people think that taste and flavor are the same thing. They're not.
Right.
Flavor is a combination of senses. And so we get a combination of sensory input with our feelings. And when we can, just like a chef, can taste a dish prepared and notice all the nuanced flavors in it, and we can do that with our emotions, it's a skill. And we just develop that skill, and then we are better able to identify them, change them, connect, pivot, all of these things. It's where you get that emotional awareness and control.
I wonder if you could sort of take a step back and talk about how you made that connection. What got you on this path to make these connections with food and our emotions?
Well, my husband and I are foodies. And plus I've always just enjoyed, a good recipe or just the flavors of food. But in the book, there was a reference that was made to, lasagna. When I read How Emotions Are Made, she talked about lasagna, how we have these concepts. We know what lasagna is because it's pasta and cheese and sauce, and maybe there's some other things in there, maybe meat, no meat. And so we have this concept for what lasagna is. Well, we also have concepts for what emotions are. And a couple of other neuroscientists refer to sensory input as ingredients. So I started to just put all of that together in this whole idea of how we experience sensory input for our emotions, but we experience sensory input for taste. I also talk about how we have expectations. This is a funny story, and it's a true story, but I was at a party, and it was a pre-New Year's Eve party, and the host had beautiful wines. He was a wine collector, and he had all of his friends there, and I happened to be a guest, fortunate guest, drinking some really beautiful wine.
Mm-hmm.
And in comes a friend of his, and he says, "Oh, Opus One." So if you don't know, Opus One's a very fancy schmancy, expensive wine brand. He takes a taste of this wine and says, "Oh, this is delicious." We all start laughing. And he's like, "What?" The host, before he got there, because he was late, played a trick on him, put $2 Chuck, or like a cheap Trader Joe's wine brand, into the bottle. The man tasted it because he expected to taste Opus One, which he'd had before. He thought it was
Mm-hmm.
delicious. His
Mm-hmm.
second sip, it wasn't so delicious. And that was because he was consciously tasting it. And so I liken that to our emotions and our emotional recipes. We often experience what we expect. And so if we can taste our experiences a second time or a little bit more closely, then we can observe where our expectations are coming into play, or when we might be getting it wrong, because the brain can predict incorrectly.
Right, right, right. Well, it's so much as, and I mean, there's a perception that comes into play too, right? Like when we talk about the brain and what it predicts, it can be like it needs data, but the data has to be correct, right?
Well, think about it this way. The more data you get, the better decision you can make, right?
Okay.
And so if you're in a fear state, you're going to be very focused on fewer ingredients and very particular ingredients of your experience going on around you. But if you can step back and be more maybe cautious or curious, you're going to take in more information. And with more information, you're going to have more accurate data. You're a businessman. You know how important data is to making any decision. So I liken it to being a better decision maker, because you have more data, and then you have more refined recipes, because you don't just have a sandwich. You have a sandwich that has a very specific cheese and a very specific meat, and maybe
Yep.
even a particular brand of mayonnaise, or mustard, and a particular type of bread. It's not just bread. It's a marbled rye.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm talking about, is
Gotcha.
getting that kind of relationship with your emotions, because that's where the power comes in. That's where awareness comes in. And with awareness, you learn what you like, what you don't like, and who you are.
Got you. Got you. Talk about what interoceptive awareness is, and why is it important for us?
Interoception is literally a sensory system, just like we have sensory systems to experience the outside world. And if you think of it, signals are considered exteroception, so it's exterior. Interoception is interior. And I like to tell people that it's how you catch your feelings, because it can get misspelled, like the auto checker will change it to
Sure.
interception. So I say it's how you catch your feelings inside of your body, and it's how your body communicates with us. Like I said earlier, you know that you're hungry because of interoceptive signals. You know that you're thirsty because of these interoceptive signals. You know you're in love because of interoceptive signals. And it's a communication tool that often gets shut down. And we either are told not to feel. How many people, especially young men, are said, "Oh, just buck up,
Right.
don't cry, don't feel it, just push through." And so this is when we start to push it down. But it, like any skill, can be developed. It can be reconnected. And I try to help people to reconnect to that system, to get comfortable with their feelings just by connecting to food, noticing sensations, noticing little things, and then expanding on it from there.
Gotcha. It would certainly takes a lot of work because when we look at our emotions and the impacts that they have on us, and how we potentially view it. Because, like, for example, there's certain stigmas attached to, like, if you get mad all of a sudden, it's bad to be mad, whereas really it's a natural emotion that should be able to flow. Is it difficult to get people to get past those stigmas? Sometimes you have challenges when people are taught, they're like, oh man, I shouldn't be mad. Whereas there's nothing wrong with being mad if it's an emotion.
Well, so I look at it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Does the situation really call for mad? It's
Okay.
all about appropriateness. And
Okay.
so, do you know the difference between being mad, upset, miffed, irritated? There's a completely different degree of impact on you physically between,
Yes.
angry, enraged, and I'm a little irritated. So it's understanding that variation in emotion. It's okay to be irritated and it's okay to be mad. I was mad yesterday, but I was able to step back and say, okay, am I benefiting from being mad? Like, or being hurt? It's like, it's that self-examination of that feeling in the moment. I would never say an emotion is bad.
Right.
It is what it is, but we can redefine it, and we can look at it as ours. Like, you like to think like the person made me mad, but no, I use the ingredients they gave me to create mad. So if I can create mad, I can change it. And so it's all about making the life that you want to have. And if you want to get mad at every situation,
Yeah.
there are some really serious physical and mental drawbacks to getting mad at every situation or getting angry at every situation. But just think in your mind, if you were a little miffed at something versus mad, doesn't it feel different in your body?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And so this is making your emotions more defined and giving it your brain much more to choose. So if you've responded to every situation as mad in the past, likely you're going to get mad a lot more in the future. But if you start to give your brain some recipes for things other than mad, guess what you're going to get in the future?
Right.
Opportunities to have feelings other than mad, and to examine when you're mad, to say, should I be mad? And that's the power, because being mad doesn't hurt them necessarily. It hurts yourself more than anybody else.
Yeah. The ability to think critically is a part of that. And I like the idea of having that conversation and asking yourself, like, is this something to be mad at? That those internal conversations are so helpful, aren't they?
Well, yes, and it's also going to help you to make better decisions with business, with people, in conversations. It's going to give you that space, to say, maybe I shouldn't respond this way, that a lot of people don't have. They go from boom to boom in a real short minute, like, no, second, nanosecond, really, their emotions happen. So it's a matter of recognizing that emotion, saying, oh, I am feeling angry here right now, but let me step back and look at what's going on. And instead of just getting angry right then and there. And that's the hope, is to make that connection, to feel that emotion and develop other feelings too, so that you can experience a variety. It's like if you just ate, beans and cheese all day, and that's all you ate,
Mm-hmm.
life is not very tasty. So I'm trying to help people have a more tasty life.
Yeah, I do like that, having a tasty life. And I was actually going to ask you sort of how, with all these sort of insights and that you've gained and knowledge and perspectives, how has that impacted you personally?
Oh, I'm the whole think this is an awesome question because I'm the whole reason this book was written, right? I mean,
Right.
don't most people have a personal journey that they're on, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
they're like, oh, okay, I need to fix this. And that was my story. I was on the floor of my condo, overwhelmed by my emotions, saying, okay, I can't keep doing this. And it's been a long journey to this point, but gosh, if I had had this information back then, I might be a different person. But I will tell you, I have definitely grown more rich in my emotions from doing this, practicing this with myself. And I experience love quite differently. And I
Hmm.
tell people all the time, if you know me, you would never think I had any sort of a strange relationship with love, but I really did. And I have a much more defined recipe for it. It's much more expansive and deeper. You know, when you look at the taste buds and the different types of taste, there's a taste, it's called umami or savory. And, you know, that's the richness that you get in like meats and things that are aged cheeses. It's that depth. And I feel like I have a lot more umami in love. And I don't think I would have had this otherwise.
Wonderful. That's so wonderful. Tell us where listeners can, well, the book again, give us the title of the name of the book again. I still love it.
It's called Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet, Understanding the Flavors of Emotions. And it's available on Amazon. And you can reach out to me at kimkorte.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Kim, I so appreciate you being here today. I so love the time that we spent chatting. Congratulations on all the work that you've done and all the best.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a treat. Thanks.
All right. Tasty treat.
A tasty treat. Yes.
All right. There we go. All the best. Back we are here on the podcast, and in our conversation with Kim, we explored the power of understanding our emotions, connecting with our feelings, and developing a new relationship with how we experience life. By recognizing the key ingredients that make up our emotions and learning to redefine them, we can take control of our responses and lead a more fulfilling life. For more insightful conversations and discussions, personalized on mastering your emotions, I'd encourage you to connect with Kim directly, of course. Her contact details are provided in the show notes below, and it'll help you, enable you to start your journey towards emotional awareness and growth. We've sadly reached the end of another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed today's episode with Kim, I'd encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, or share if you haven't done so already, because that's how we continue to spread this good word of audaciousness to more people. Remember, the power to transform your life is in your hands, so keep daring greatly and living that audacious life. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.